back to Animation Pilgrimage, where Sean and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I am Tennille.
And I'm Sean.
Today we're looking at Ralph Bakshi's X-rated film, Fritz the Cat.
If
you
you're
are
a child,
underage, please skip this review.
please get out.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. And on we go for Fritz the Cat. This is a very well-known film, probably more notorious than anything else.
Yeah, more infamous than famous.
Yeah. It is the first animated film to receive the American X rating. However, it's not the first quote-unquote R or X-rated animated film we've watched here in Animation Pilgrimage.
No, Osamu Tezuka claimed those
Yeah.
over in Japan.
And you can argue some of the propaganda stuff would be rated pretty harshly.
Yeah.
Like it's not the same caliber as this kind of stuff, but definitely would deserve a content warning.
Mm-hmm. I honestly don't know how much of the film I will even be able to show to you.
Yeah.
Because when it's not naked people, it's pretty hard violence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie has lots of sex, lots of violence, lots of drugs, and lots of cursing. Because this is set in modern day, 1971 to
Well, the movie was made in finished and published in 1972, but the comic that it's based off of started in 1965. So Fritz the Cat and the characters in it are all kind of take place in the time period of New York, America, 1965 to 1972.
Okay. That.
Yes.
So it's present day, people complaining about their lives and wishing to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into...
Let's start with a summary to catch anyone up who is not familiar with what happens in Fritz the Cat.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
So, Fritz the Cat is a college-age, white, male cat.
You say white. I mean, he's an anthropomorphic cat, but he's very much coated white.
Oh, he's absolutely coated white because there are crows.
Mm-hmm.
And those are coded African American.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. White people can be literally any animal under the sun, but black people are only crows.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
Cool.
great, fantastic, I love it. Anyways, so this college-age white male, upper to middle class probably,
Oh, most definitely.
does whatever he wants. And honestly has very little repercussions for what he does. So let's go down the list of things that happen in this movie in the order that he does them,
Yeah.
as best as I can remember. So he picks up 3 girls with soul-searching lines about searching their souls and stuff, and he just wants to have sex with them. Mm-hmm. He does so, and then he accidentally starts an orgy in the pot den that they were having sex in. Then the cops show up, and he runs from them. And then he goes back to his college dorm, where he talks about how he can't spend his time going to college and stuff. He has to be out there living the moment so he can write beautiful poetry because he's a poet. Of course he is.
It's very anti-intellectual.
Mm-hmm. All about living in the moment. He takes lots of prescription drugs. I don't know what they were, but he got very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, continued high after doing the pot. He sets all of school books on fire while shouting words about why book learning is bad and he's better than that. And then he realizes what he did and he's like, oh crap, everything's on fire.
Probably the funniest moment in the movie.
My books are all on fire.
See, now, I
Put
think
the blanket on it.
I think up till this point, I was pretty okay with this movie. I just want to say, like, I wasn't enjoying it, but I think it's worth mentioning that up till this point in the movie, I was like, I don't really like this, but I get why people liked it, and it's definitely different than anything else I've seen so far.
Oh, absolutely.
And the animation on Fritz, in particular in that scene, is really well done. Like, it's some really nice character animation.
And I can show all of it because there's like nothing wrong with it visually.
Yeah.
Ideologically, there's definitely... anyways. So, after that, he decides to go to a black bar in Harlem, which, in case you're not aware, Harlem is the bad side, where the black African-American communities are.
The quote-unquote bad side
of the... Yeah.
Yeah.
What is widely considered by upper middle class white people as the bad side of town.
Yeah.
And he's trying to hang out and act all cool.
Telling African Americans how he gets it. Also, like, he completely skipped over these two, like, what feel like very random scenes. One in a Jewish synagogue where where the police run through it and are trying to look for Fritz, and there's a conversation happening between some rabbi, and then another scene where it's just some black folks at a bar talking about their lives.
Those scenes are very particular scenes, and they're not pertaining to Fritz. The overarching plot of Fritz.
They're in the
movie, so I figured we'd talk about them later. I just want to get through the plot as best as we can.
Yeah.
Either way, he's talking about how he gets it and stuff, and he's just constantly keeps showing how he's the shitty, awkward white guy who is actively talking down to them without realizing he's talking down to them.
Oh yeah.
You know what we're talking about here.
He's simultaneously talking about how much he gets it, and then also
complaining about his white privilege.
Also complaining about not his white privilege, his white guilt.
Yeah, his white guilt.
Oh my god.
It's pretty bad.
It's awkward.
So he makes friends with a guy that likes pool and almost starts a bar fight because he's there.
Yeah.
And the barkeep
and just being an ass, like just being himself and being an ass.
A shitty asshole. Almost starts a bar fight. So they leave. They steal a car. And then they go to a completely different part of town. I don't even know what this place was, but...
I barely understand what's happening in this section. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get what happened, but, like, I don't get why any of it happened.
So he goes to this different place where there is presumably...
someone selling drugs.
She's selling drugs, but is also a hooker and trying to get all of Fritz's money and stuff. And so then he gets really drugged up again and chases her all throughout, like...
the junkyard?
The junkyard for some reason, and then they do a sex. And then in the middle of it, he's like, oh, revolution!
Yeah.
I need to start racial violence with the police!
Yeah.
And he does that. And everyone dies except for him. He gets away scot-free because he's white.
Dies.
Yeah, his friend gets shot in the chest for doing nothing because...
Well, for trying to save Fritz's life. He's trying to get him out of there.
He's like, get off the car, you dumbass. It's not safe there. And then he gets shot.
Yep.
And then, like, we have a long, drawn-out scene of him dying as his heart slows down, like, shown through pool balls.
It's a very impactful scene. But, oh my god, I hate it.
Fritz doesn't notice or care.
Nope.
This is very important to note.
The not only are the police there, but they, like...
Ignore him.
No, the police, like, the police call the military, and the military, like, bring in bombs.
Yeah, they're, like, bombing the
like
Harlem.
air diving Harlem, and I'm just like, oh my god.
I get that this is a joke, but like this is a real thing that happened. Not the bombs, but like police brutality and violence in these communities is a non-zero amount. So please note that this movie was made by a white man.
Yeah.
Anyways. So, Fritz feels like he's on the run from the police, which, after the scene in the synagogue where he was being chased for drugs, the police have shown no interest in him.
No.
At all. After he started racial violence, no one cares about him. But he decides to go across the country with a level-headed, nagging, in air quotes, woman. Who is down to earth and like the most reasonable character in this movie, probably. But he can't stand her because she talks back to him and doesn't just want to have sex all the time and have a free life of fun and poetry, man. So he ditches her in the middle of the desert when they run out of gas. Cool. And then he gets picked up by Nazi terrorists.
Yeah.
Look, the white male who feels out of place in the world falls in with Nazis. Who would have seen that coming?
Who would have thought?
Oh my god.
I mean, like, it's almost poetic how much this still relates to America today. Like,
it really sucks.
Oh my god! I don't want to talk about this movie!
Then a violent rape happens, with lots of violence with chains and hitting the girlfriend, quote-unquote, of the Nazi rabbit.
Who is so tweaked out on drugs that, like, he's not even a functioning human being.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Anyways, Fritz helps them blow up a power plant. And then he died. Well, he also gets exploded.
And then he dies. I
wish it killed him. Unfortunately, he wakes up in the hospital, and he's visited by the rape victim and the 3 girls from the very beginning that he picked up. Also, I guess we should note that at the very beginning, he was trying to pick up women as the white guy with the guitar in the park.
He's just the shittiest human being.
But he couldn't do it because it was already overrun by other white guys with shitty guitars.
Yeah.
Either way, they walk in and he starts quoting the poetry that he had been quoting earlier in the movie about
he's quoting the Beatles.
He's quoting the Beatles?
He's quoting the Beatles.
Okay. And he's talking about how he's seen everything and gone everywhere. And then he has the sex.
And I'm like, bitch, you've lived in New York your whole life, and you only just recently were out in the Californian desert. Like,
I don't even know if we made it to California.
No. He was like going through Arizona, and he just
got picked up by Nazis.
Yeah, and then he goes back to New York, and it's just like...
No, he's in California.
Oh, yeah.
There at the very end, he's in a hospital. Under police custody.
He's like, I've seen the entire world. I'm like...
Are you kidding me?
You little prick.
This little shit, after all of this, is rewarded with an orgy with all those girls in the hospital.
Yep.
And that's how the movie ends.
That's how the movie ends. Originally, the movie was supposed to end with him dying. But then the producer's like, don't do that.
Why? That would have been like...
a fitting end?
A fitting end to this shitty character. Instead he gets rewarded, which means... Like, going through this movie, it keeps striking this balance of, are we supposed to be rooting for Fritz, or are we supposed to hate him? Right. Is it supposed to be like one of those kind of characters where it's like, oh, you're supposed to look at him, see all the shitty stuff he's doing and how it's wrong, and learn from it? But then they reward this character for all of his terrible behavior at the end of the movie.
Yeah, so then you're just like, wait, now I'm looking at this with a different lens of like, so there's going to be a lot of people, especially in the 70s, who probably watched this movie and were like, yeah, I want to be just like Fritz. And I'm like, oh my god.
That's not the right message.
That is not the message to take away from this. But, like, I don't think this film really has a message. It's just, it has a lot of things in it that you could take any meaning you wanted out of it. But, like, it itself as a movie doesn't have anything to say about these topics. It's just
bringing them up to like tantalize you and be like, ooh, I'm edgy and I'm talking about the
taboo thing we're not supposed to talk about.
And that's the feeling of the whole movie. It's like, I don't think I inherently hate this movie. It was fascinating to watch, but it has such terrible morals. I don't know if I could really recommend this to a whole lot of people. If you are a person that is questioning your morals, probably stay away from this one.
Skip this one.
Because it can teach you some really bad ones.
Well, that's the thing, is I couldn't even give it that much credit. Like, I don't think anybody, I don't know, I guess I have more faith in people, but I just don't think that there's a whole lot of people who could watch this film, and unless you already had a specific way of looking at the world, like, you wouldn't take anything away from this.
Okay, I guess that's fair. So this movie did have some other scenes in there that you were talking about. There's one at the beginning with some construction workers just talking about putting their kids through college. There is the scene of the Jewish rabbi talking to each other about the one can't see because he's old, like 67 or something. Then
fun fact, that is actually Ralph Bakshi's father and uncle, I think. It's two members of his family.
Okay. And then there's also the scene of just a few African American people chatting about their lives, and that goes on for a really long time. And you'll note that the audio quality of these scenes in particular are completely different from when Fritz the Cat is talking. That's because these are real people that Ralph Bakshi just went out and taped their audio without them being aware of the situation.
Well, no. I think they were aware of the situation.
Okay.
So, I did more looking into this, but, like, he specifically went out and recorded, like, sat down and talked with people and recorded the conversations. The scene in the bar is one of the times that he went to Harlem to just talk with African Americans and have them talk about their lives and their experiences, and he recorded it and he put it in the movie.
Okay.
And like I said, the scene with the rabbis is some of his family, and then the scene with the construction workers is, I think, actually a scene with construction workers, and he just, like, brought them in and, like, paid them to just sit down and talk with him.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a lot of the other voice acting, too, is all either done by people in the studio or other people he just found in New York City. Like on the streets.
Hey, you want to come in and just do some voices for me? Like, read these lines, I'll pay you for it?
Essentially.
I'll hopefully pay you for it?
Yeah. The only professional actor working in this film is Fritz. Fritz the Cat, who was voiced by Skip Hannett. Skip Hannett? But yeah, he was the only professional voice actor of the film. The rest is just all amateur work that's come in, or just literally people just talking about their lives.
I mean, other than the random conversations, I think everybody did a relatively good job.
Which, this is fascinating, and I would love to see this applied in something better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a YouTube channel I watch from time to time that's called, like, StoryCorps or something like that has a very similar kind of feel to it, where they have people come in, tell stories about their pasts. They're usually super sad. But, and then they have somebody animate the story on top of it.
So that it's essentially saved forever and people can watch it.
Yeah, and
it's oftentimes like younger family members going to like their older generations, like, tell me about your childhood and stuff.
Yeah, or, like, tell me where you were during 9/11 or something like that, know. So it's real hard-hitting stuff, but...
Tell me how it was with you growing up gay in the South. Like on your Christian dad's farm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, cool things like that. Tell me
I'm not gonna leave this story with a dry eye.
Tell me about the police violence that happened to you, African American child adopted by a white family.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Cool things.
Oh man. But like, this is kind of the start of that idea in this movie. And I would say that these are probably the best scenes in the film, but unfortunately, because the audio quality is so bad... It's
difficult to hear what anyone is saying half the time.
Yeah, it's really difficult to hear what anybody is saying.
Half the time, some people are just mumbling. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
No, and it's like, I really wish we were watching this movie with English subtitles, because I cannot make out what people are saying. And apparently, like, I don't know, man. The production of this movie seems like it was just a nightmare. Like, anybody who worked on it, it seemed, had some sort of conflict with Backsheet, where it was like, not necessarily like a super heated thing, but it was like, do
you really want to do this? And he's like, yes.
Yeah. And they're like, okay.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like are we really doing this type of thing?
Yeah, well...
There's a lot of representation in this movie.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, we're seeing a lot of minority groups that we haven't seen in animated films up to this point, like, at all.
Fun fact, we've seen there is a gay African-American character in this movie.
Who doesn't get made fun of. He's just there.
He's there, and there's a lot of... It's the three... white girls from the beginning.
Oh my god.
That are all talking about their white guilt to this guy and like obviously trying to pick him up. And he just says something along the lines of like, girls, I ain't into you. Or like, I don't know the exact line, but he just like, it's just a slap in the face making fun of them because they're obviously in the wrong here. Yeah. And then he's gone. He's gone from the movie. He's not made fun of at all. And this is some representation that I don't think we're going to see again for a very, very long time.
Yeah. But, like, that's the thing, is even with the representation in the film, like, it's all very dicey representation. Like, even that one. Like, that's not fantastic representation. It's... it's still there for a joke. Yeah, even if it's not at his expense.
Mm-hmm. Like, the joke still revolves around the fact that he is gay.
Oh, yeah. Well, in general, because Fritz is such a horrible human being, and most of the people that it's centered around are the same age as Fritz. Like, the movie's definitely making fun of this, like, liberal hippie mindset.
I mean, the movie starts with,
while also relishing it. Like, yeah.
Like, there's an obvious hippie character that gets just, like, smashed to the ground because a rhino pissed on him from the construction. Like, the piss was just so forceful that it smashed him to the ground. So it's like, cool, we're pissing on hippies at the beginning of the movie. You're not saying anything about it other than, screw them. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah.
Nothing insightful here.
Screw that guy in particular. All right. Before we continue talking about this, I want to go into more of the history.
Okay.
So, Fritz the Cat, 1972, had a budget of $700,000. Pretty cheap.
Yep.
For an animated film. It had a box office of 90 million.
Holy shit.
Making it, I think, to this date still, the highest grossing independent animated film ever.
I mean, I would say so.
That's a lot of profit.
That is a lot of money.
For context, I also wrote down what the Aristocats made. The Aristocats was made on a budget of $4 million, so quite a bit more money.
Yeah, that's like 5-6 times the budget.
And you have to remember this was re-released to theaters multiple times.
So this is how much they made across all of those re-releases.
Yes, this is across, like, I think 3 or 4 different re-releases for the Aristocats.
Okay.
The Aristocats made 191 million. So that's still 100 million more than what Fritz the Cat made. But this is a product that was made by Disney, released multiple times.
It had a budget that was like 5
6 times.
Yeah, 6 times as high as this movie's budget.
Right.
That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good for you.
It's the first animated film to receive the X rating, and promptly after its success is when the Osamu Tezuka films got quickly ported over here.
They're like, wait, we can make money over in America too? Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, no, because they didn't even receive an X rating then when they got over here, because they were so...
They're relatively mundane, so I'm sure they were still are.
Well, that's the thing, is they didn't end up getting a rating at all. Because they just, like, weren't in a whole lot of theaters, I don't think.
Okay.
And from what I could tell, it sounds like even if they did get a rating, they probably wouldn't have gotten an X, because there's really not a whole lot in them.
No, it's like there's some boobs, and that's about it. So that would be R, possibly even PG, because PG-13 didn't exist at that time.
Yeah.
And I have definitely seen some old PG movies that had boobs in them.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like, oh, they showed titties there.
Oh, whoop.
Real titties.
So like I was saying earlier, Fritz the Cat is based off of the comic Fritz the Cat by Robert Crumb, which was a comic made between 1965 and 1972.
Okay, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah. This comic was huge in the underground comic scene.
It probably wasn't in the Sunday paper.
No, absolutely not. And then, of course, after the movie came out, it became even larger. But you'll notice...
It stopped pretty quick.
It stopped after 1972. Because Robert Crumb really did not like this movie. And it's funny because, you know how earlier I was saying how, like, everyone seemed to kind of have a problem with, like, Ralph Bakshi, like, making this movie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that happened here. Is Robert Crumb, like, and Ralph Bakshi talked for a long time about negotiating the rights, but they never actually came to an agreement. Like, some lawyers and attorneys and stuff came to an agreement. And then, like, Robert Bakshi at the beginning of it was like, oh, I'm so excited to work on this because Robert Crumb's genius, blah, blah, blah. But then, give it a few years after the release of this film, and both parties seem less than pleased with each other. With Robert Crumb just being like, the last time I had to watch this film was in 1980, and I was so embarrassed, like, I had to leave.
Oh, man.
And with Ralph Bakshi just being like, I don't like that Robert Crumb guy. I think he took more money from the movie than I did, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh my god. Oh, the drama. But yeah, he specifically hated the dialogue that Fritz had in the movie. He hated a lot of the additional political stuff that was added into it. And he really, really made note of that he did not like the fact that Fritz the cat quoted the Beatles at the end of the movie. Which is where I learned that it was a quote from the Beatles.
You gotta remember, we don't know the Beatles that much.
Not enough to know if someone's quoting it.
It's like, what he was saying sounded familiar, but I had no idea why.
Yeah, I'm like, this seems familiar, but I don't know. It could
it's like,
be
oh, he
anything.
said this earlier in the movie.
Uh-huh.
Well, he was quoting it then there, too.
But yeah, he essentially hated associating with Fritz the cat at all. So he had Fritz killed as a character, like in comic.
Oh.
In 1972.
Good.
So, probably only a few months after this movie came out.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And you know how Fritz died?
Drug overdose.
I don't think you're gonna guess it.
Gun? Too much sex.
His girlfriend kills him with an ice pick. After he makes some really sexist comments.
I didn't see the ice pick coming.
It's with an ice pick.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like I've heard death by ice pick before.
It's something that's usually, like, up there in murders. I don't know why, but, like...
What's the obsession with ice picks? Who goes ice climbing?
I don't know.
Upper middle class white cat people do, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, so rip Fritz. And shock and surprise, not only was it kind of a mess of a production staff-wise, because, you had people coming in who were like, cool, I want to draw all this vulgarness and titties and sex and violence. Go figure, a lot of them weren't pleasant people to be around.
Shock and surprise.
Shock and surprise, so they got fired. And then you have, decent folk who are like, you know what?
I'm here for the budget.
Morally, I don't think I can work on this film. Like, he had several women leave the production of the film because they're like, I don't like going home and not being able to tell my children what I work on. And
I was searching the credits, and I think I only saw, like, one obvious woman's name in the in the credits. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people, like, leaving, and then, of course, corporate side, nobody wants to fund this movie. I think the funding got slashed, like, 3 or 4 times, like, as execs would suggest a change, and Ralph Bakshi would be like, no.
And they're like, cool, we're taking your budget away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I see how this is going. Mm-hmm. No, we have the power here.
Yeah. So that's why it has such a small budget, but that's also why the marketing is super focused on the fact that it was rated X. Like, if you were going to hear anything about this movie, it was the fact that it was rated X. So that was marketed to hell and back, and it paid off because it piqued people's interest. And I do just want to note that, probably a big reason why they could even do that is because of the Yellow Submarine, just a few years earlier, had gotten more of an adult audience interested in animation to begin with.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true.
So the fact
Thanks, Beatles.
Thanks! Cool. Oh, this was a funny little anecdote I found where it's just like, I just want to say I don't understand Ralph Bakshi as a person. Like,
you've looked up a lot of information on him and it doesn't make any sense. I was just putting words in your mouth there. I obviously don't know.
he seems like the kind of guy who really wants to tell you something deep, man.
But he doesn't have any focus for what that is.
But he has thoughts about as deep as a puddle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I found this funny. So at the beginning of production, I said that Ralph Bakshi was like, oh man, Robert Crumb, genius. But then during production, people were like, well, Bakshi, why are you going so far off from what happened in the comics? Like, why aren't we just adapting the comics? And Ralph Bakshi responds with, he deviated from the comics because he felt they lacked depth. Okay. Alright. Bakshi was also very hyper-focused on being an antithesis to Disney. A shock and surprise. I really don't have anything to comment there, but like...
Mickey, Donald, and... I don't remember.
Another duck. I think like Daisy or something.
Was it another duck?
I think so.
Okay, I can't remember if it was another duck or if Minnie. But it was definitely Mickey, Donald, and someone else were there, like, whooping and shouting hoorays as the bombers went to Harlem. Mm-hmm. So that's...
Yet again, I really hate, if you want to not be Disney, cool. Don't be Disney. Also, please just...
Don't bring up Disney.
Don't bring them up. Like, it's not hard. You can just not be Disney and do your own thing without making jabs at them. Like, unless you have something actually important to say, which none of these jabs, whenever they come up in movies, ever do. It's just like, wow, I hate those Disney guys.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks. Can you not?
We get you hate them, but, like, you're not telling us why.
Yeah. Like, you're not even talking about, like, unionization or anything that would give your hatred any context. It's just, man, screw Disney. And I'm like, alright, cool, fun. I love it. I hate it. Yeah, I already talked about the actors. That was part of my notes. Mid-production, they moved from New York to Hollywood.
Wow. Interesting.
And Hollywood was not very welcoming. Yet again, not really a whole lot I have to say about that, but I just thought it was, interesting.
Yeah. Can't say I've really spent a whole lot of time in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I might have been there once.
I've never been.
I can't even remember if I was. I vaguely have memories of being at Liberty Island, maybe.
How can you forget something like that?
My family took so many trips.
Lucky.
It's just the thing that happened. And I was that shitty teenager that hated going on trips.
You were that shitty white kid.
Yes, I was.
You were that shitty privileged white kid.
That hated being on trips.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit it. That was me.
Yep.
It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't remember it.
God. Oh, man. But anyway, so now I have a whole other note here that's critical reception. And for this, I feel like I just need to read
verbatim
some of these, because I want to see your reaction.
Okay.
All right. New York Times wrote that the film is constantly funny. There's something to offend just about everyone.
Cool.
Great. New York Magazine wrote, a gloriously funny, brilliantly pointed, and superbly executed entertainment whose target is the muddled-headed radical chicks and slicks of the 60s, and that it should change the face of the animated cartoon forever.
Them darn kids.
Them darn hippies.
Yup.
The Hollywood Reporter called the film powerful and audacious. And Newsweek called it a harmless, mindless, pro-youth saga.
Well, there you go. It's like
See,
pro-youth,
exactly.
anti-youth.
Yeah, it's like you can take any meaning from this that you want. A harmless, mindless, pro-youth saga calculated to shake up only the box office. I mean, honestly, I feel like this guy at least got some of it right. It's like calculated to shake up the box office. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make something dark and edgy. Mm-hmm. That was the point.
Rolling Stone said, sure to mark the most important breakthrough in animation since Yellow Submarine.
Well,
which, I mean,
he's not
historically...
wrong.
Yeah, it's like, he's not wrong.
It changes everything.
This reviewer then recanted his earlier statement and wrote that the visuals were not enough to save the finished product from being a qualified disaster due to a leaden plot, a juvenile script that relied too heavily on tired gags and tasteless ethnic humor.
Oh, thank God. Good.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of those movies that at the time everyone was like,
whoa,
so blown away by like how different it was. And then people thought about it a little bit and were like, you know what?
Maybe this wasn't so good.
That ain't it, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks for something different, but can we like not do it in that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, here has some of the comic writer Robert Crumb's responses to it. Which I'll just read again. Crumb later said in an interview that he felt the film was really a reflection of Ralph Bakshi's confusion, you know? There's something real repressed about it. In a way, it's more twisted than my stuff. It's really twisted in some weird, kind of unfunny way. I didn't like the sex attitude in it very much. It's like real repressed horniness, like he's letting it out compulsively.
Yeah.
He also criticized the film's condemnation of the radical left. Also, he really hates that it quotes the Beatles song The End. And they put words into his mouth that I would never have him say. He tried to file a lawsuit to have his name removed from the credits, but that never went through. And, yeah, in response to his distaste for the film, Crumb had Fritz the Cat Superstar published in People's Comics later in 1972, in which a jealous girlfriend kills Fritz with an ice pick. Yeah, Crumb later cited the film as one of those experiences I sort of block out. The last time I saw it was when I was making an appearance at a German art school in the mid-1980s. I was forced to watch it with the students. It was an excruciating ordeal, a humiliating embarrassment. I recall Victor Muscasco was the only one who warned me, if you don't stop this film from being made, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And he was right.
Oh. You know, I like a lot of what he had to say about this.
Mm-hmm. And then, this is also then Bakshi. In a 2008 interview, Bakshi referred to Crumb as a hustler and stated, he goes in so many directions he's hard to pin down. I think that's hilarious coming from you.
Bakshi?
Pot
we can't pin you down.
Black, man.
We can't pin you down.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that's you.
I spoke to him on the phone. We had the same deal, 5%. They finally sent Crumb the money and not me. Crumb always gets what he wants, including that chateau of his in France. I have no respect for Crumb. Is he a good artist? Yes, but if you want to do the same thing over and over, you're an animator!
What do you think you're doing?
You're an animator! He should have been my best friend for what I did with Fritz the Cat. I drew a good picture and we both made out fine. You made it sound like you made out horribly. I just don't understand you, and this is the first of your movies.
Only the first. Only the first. So, you know how we kept foreboding that, like, the 70s is where it gets weird and dark? Well,
a lot of that's going to be because of Bakshi itself.
It's because of this movie in particular is going to ripple throughout the animated industry, and also Ralph Bakshi himself is going to release many films.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And apparently you said this is supposed to be his best one?
Well, it's kind of contested between this and
one of his later films?
I think the next film of his we're going to watch, which is Heavy Traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great! I'm so glad we get the good ones out of the way to start with.
Right.
Well, with...
But then he also makes like a Lord of the Ring adaptation.
Yes, he does!
Which is so bizarre.
It's just like, wait, what?
What?
And it's just Lord of the Rings.
We should also note that before he worked on this, he was an animator and he worked on, like your basic kind of like anthropomorphic animal cartoons called like Terrytoons or something like that. So,
okay.
You know, he does have a background before this movie as well.
Okay, I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah.
I think that's all the time we need to dwell on this episode. Obviously, it's been a pretty long one, which means there will be no Animation Pilgrimage episode in the next time slot available, so it'll be another week before you get another episode. And that next episode that we will be watching is back to Toei Animation, something lighthearted. It's actually a sequel. Mm-hmm. We're watching The Three Musketeers in Boots.
Oh, Puss.
Puss in Boots is back, but in the Wild West, with the name of The Three Musketeers.
I don't know, after the last two movies, I don't care how strange it is. I feel like I can trust Toei to at least give us something like...
Boringly bad, but visually interesting.
Bad. Yeah. It'll have some charming moments to it, I hope.
Alright, see you guys then.
Bye.
Down the lane, they're strolling